His ephod was of gold. Look at the colors. Blue, purple, and scarlet. We'll have to look at that later. And fine twined linen. And he put them that they should be stones for a memorial to the children of Israel. 4 rows of stones there on his chest. Sardius, topaz, carbuncle, emerald, sapphire, diamond, ligua, agate, and amethyst, and beryl, onyx, and jasper. 4 rows specifically laid out in a very particular order where the Lord is trying to depict and voice something to us. What is he trying to say? Well, it says in Exodus 39 that the stones were according to the names of the children of Israel 12, like the engravings of a signet, everyone with his name. That's where the word signature comes from. It's an engraving. It's a mark that you make. It's your mark of authority. You see, on the breastplate of the high priest was the signature, the signet, the signing of each one of the tribes of Israel. And at the end of time, the high priest again will have 12 tribes. But that's a whole discussion on its own. Brothers and sisters, listen to this. There is a layout of the ephod, what it probably would have looked like. Here are the stones laid out in their correct fashion. Now the onyx stones fastened to the shoulder of the ephod indicated that the high priest was to bear the physical burdens of Israel. However, today, Jesus is our high priest and he carries our burdens. We are told in Psalm 55 verse 22, cast thy burden upon the Lord and he shall sustain thee. Do you remember that? Cast thy burden upon the Lord and he shall sustain thee. I want to spend a moment with you now and I want to show you a clip, or it's not a video clip, it's an audio clip. I want you to see how the high priest interfaces in the New Testament with the Old Testament. I want to show you some text words from the Psalms. And I want to share with you how these the text words in Psalms have been laid out in such a way that Mendelssohn in his music on Elijah could put it together in the most magnificent fashion. Have a look at this, watch this. Here you see how the various text words, Psalm 55, Psalm 16, etc. are laid out. But listen now how Mendelssohn puts this into music. Read this and listen to this with me. Cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. He never will suffer the righteous to fall. He is at thy right hand. Thy mercy, Lord, is great, and far above the heavens. Let none be made ashamed. That wait upon thee. Isn't that just magnificent? Cast thy burdens upon the Lord. When I hear that, cast thy burdens upon the Lord, it is so, that's what the sanctuary does. It brings the Bible alive. That when you read the Bible, it's not, yawn, and then we carry on. No, brothers and sisters, but when you read it, if you see the high priest in the Old Testament, and now you realize that Jesus is your high priest and that we have to cast our burdens upon the Lord, wow, this starts to make sense. And it's as if the Bible, it's like it starts to pulsate and glow with life. You see, the sanctuary is not so much a doctrine as it is a system of standards by which to evaluate the validity and the many accepted beliefs to be found in the Christian church. Listen to that. The sanctuary is not a doctrine, but rather a system of standards by which to evaluate the validity and many accepted beliefs to be found in the Christian church. I cannot indoctrinate you with the sanctuary. It's not like I can teach you the dogmas of my church. The sanctuary is the sanctuary. It stands alone because it points to Jesus Christ. Having the sanctuary at the table is like having Jesus Christ himself at the table. It can't indoctrinate anyone to believe what I believe. The sanctuary is not a doctrine, it's a system of standards where you and I can go and check what the sanctuary says and then can compare what we believe against what we've studied in the Word. I hope that's coming clear, because it's important to realize that you can either go on what suits you, you can believe what suits you, you can search for a church, you open the book, the telephone book, and you go through the hundreds of options, and you say, well, I like that church, and then you go there and the music's not quite right, or people dress funny, and you go to the next church and you go through the various options looking for a church. Wouldn't it rather make sense to find out which church had the truth and then change your beliefs to suit the truth? Well, that's what we need to find out today. Most people are going through the various options because we don't know what all truth is. Now, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So all the Christian churches are teaching truth. But how many of them are teaching all truth? We'll have to have a look at this in these presentations. But please realize that you're going to be given a choice to either accept or reject the messages that are given to you. You're going to be given that choice. Obviously, you can choose if you want to accept them or reject them, but remember that the sanctuary is not something I can indoctrinate you with, but rather it's a system of standards for you to check whether what you currently believe is actually what Jesus believed and taught. Psalm 63 tells us that, O God, thou art my God, early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth to see thy power and thy glory, as I have seen thee in the sanctuary. When you get it, when you, like they say in Afrikaans, as jy dit snap, it's like having an aha moment. When you get into the sanctuary and you start to see the multiple levels of fulfillment, it's like, oh, wow! It's at that moment that you, like the psalmist, can say, my soul thirsteth to see thee, as I've seen the power and the glory in the sanctuary, brothers and sisters. I have not found another more powerful mechanism by which I can make sure that what I believe is correct and at the same time experience the power of Christ as through the sanctuary. Should we as Christians today understand the heavenly sanctuary? Isn't it maybe just for the Jews or maybe just for somebody else? When you ask a Christian today, where's Jesus? They'll say, well, he's in heaven. Yeah, I know he's in heaven, but what's he doing? Well, he's interceding. He's our advocate. He's gone to prepare a place for us. There's always these sort of answers. But is Christianity today truly aware and fully cognitive of where Jesus is and what specifically he's doing? Do you know that the role as high priest had different roles in it? And that just as the high priest on earth changed his role. So Jesus, high priest, as our high priest in heaven, changes his role, and there's different times, and the Bible lays out those times and when Jesus is going to do what, so that we don't have to guess what Jesus is doing for us, but by faith we can know where our Lord is and what he's doing. Should we understand the heavenly sanctuary, brothers and sisters? Well, the earthly sanctuary illustrates redemption in the heavenly sanctuary. The heavenly sanctuary is the great original where the work of redemption is now in progress. Here Jesus is now making his final appeal before the Father on our behalf for our salvation, brothers and sisters. The earthly sanctuary that was laid out by Moses, that is if you study it and you look into the earthly sanctuary, you can by faith know what's happening up in heaven. That's why the Lord has given it to us, so that we know all aspects and all movements of our high priest and his role as our mediator, our intercessor, our lawyer, our judge, and what he's doing at different times. It's the most wonderful study to do. Hebrews 9 tells us that the heavenly sanctuary is the true sanctuary. It is, as it says in Hebrews, it's a greater and more perfect tabernacle not made with hands. You see, so the earthly tabernacle built by Moses was the one made with hands. But the heavenly tabernacle, that's the one which is greater and more perfect, not made by hands. Can you see that? That's the second one. Let's have a look at another text. Hebrews 10. Also, the things in the earthly sanctuary were miniature representations of the heavenly sanctuary. Paul explains in Hebrews 10 that these ones in the earthly sanctuary are not the very image of the things. It's sort of like a dinky car version of the big car. It's though we look through a glass darkly, the Bible says, so looking into the sanctuary, you'll be able to somehow, to a certain extent, understand the magnificence of the business plan which is being rolled out in heaven. The greater and more perfect tabernacle which the Lord pitched is composed of real living angels, not carved, not embroidered, not statues of beaten gold, but real angels pulsating with life. The earthly was a mere shadow of the true, given to enable man to understand the real sanctuary in heaven. Brothers and sisters, please listen to this. The greater and more perfect tabernacle in heaven, which the Lord pitched and not man, is not composed of carved and images and physical veils, etc., etc. Let me give you an example. If you go through the sanctuary and you have a look, you come through the holy place, you come to the veil between the holy and the most holy. That veil was embroidered with angels, with cherubims. It was embroidered, right? And those angels on there in the blue and the red and the purple colors and the golden angels, they were embroidered. So they were literally angels, like stagnant or stationary angels. Now, these are not the real image of the things, because in heaven, those angels are not stationary, brothers and sisters. Those are live, pulsating angels that are passing backwards and forwards before the throne of God, and the fantastic parallels. The earthly sanctuary pointing towards the greater and more perfect tabernacle, the earthly being just not even a shadow of the true. Now, there are biblical names for the heavenly sanctuary. There's quite a couple, in fact. Look at that. Solomon called it thy dwelling place. David called it a palace. He also called it his holy temple. John called it the temple of God. Isaiah called it the habitation of thy holiness. Or, as Paul stated, the true tabernacle which the Lord pitched and not man. Jesus called it my Father's house. Has many mansions, you remember? David said, place of his habitation. Jeremiah called it his holy habitation. The sanctuary, Paul said, the holiest of all. All these different names given to describe this magnificent temple in heaven, of which the greatest high priest of all time is God, Jesus Christ himself. The biblical names of the earthly sanctuary Paul called it in Hebrews, the author of Hebrews called it a worldly sanctuary, the first tabernacle, a figure for the time then present. These were the patterns of the things in the heavens, not the very image of the things in the heavens. The holy places made with hands by Moses and his helpers. These were just figures of the